Yeah, it just feels great. I love our Sundays. I love that we can all carry this energy with us through the week. Some of us don't even make it out the door without, slipping out of the consciousness, But it's our job to learn to tether to the light of God, to tether to the truth of God, to tether to peace and happiness and joy. Not just to go to a lecture somewhere and go, in my head, that was interesting. And then go back to being the same. Remember, every time we read something, learn something, meditate something, whatever, anything we do, doesn't matter if it's incense and gongs, and whatever we do, all that matters is that we're higher when we're done. If it didn't happen, something went wrong, honestly. If you go to a talk somewhere and you leave and go, I got nothing, I'm no different, something went wrong. Now, it could be that you're not choosing something that'll pull you to a higher consciousness, like help you raise. And it can also be you heard something great and you just chose not to listen. But if I were in that position, which I'm always in, we're always in this, if I'm in that position, I personally refuse to be the same after anything I do. It's just something in me for some reason does that. I can sit and watch some simple movie and go, whoa, and make it something amazing. Some of us can do that, but it's a choice we make. Some of us can be sitting and listening to the holiest of beings and get so in our head that we refuse to absorb it. The key word is integration. Integration, to take into yourself that thing. And if you're a master, you'll read a bubblegum wrapper and still ascend. You could read Run, Spot, Run, Wait, Run, Spot, wow, okay. Run, Spot, Run. See, Spot, Run. That's about me getting on the path and going. Yes! Wow! I got it. And then somebody says, are you a Christian? I'm a spot run guy, Anyway. And somebody asked earlier, can you explain what is the light of God? Fairly simple, but deep, profound stuff. What is God? Why do we say there's Father, Mother, God? Some people just call it Father, and so on and so on. God has no gender, has no body, nothing, there's nothing like that at all. It's impossible with human brains and minds and thought processes and patterns and programs to even remotely understand what God is. But the closest you can come, because we want to keep everything practical, the closest we can come is simply a sublime feeling. Peace and joy. And I could explain peace, joy, happiness, oneness, love. I could explain that to a 99-year-old, and I can explain it to a 9-year-old. That's how beautiful and simple God is. If you start to say, well, oh my gosh, and God is this thing, and then it created, even when my oldest girl was a child, 35 now, she was probably 5 then, and she said, but the famous question, but if God doesn't, created all things, what created God? That's the brain trying to understand something. The heart knows things the mind knows not of, is this old saying. So you can't figure out God. You can only really let go and start to feel it. That's why the person with the highest intellect on their deathbed could say, I don't get it. And in that moment of vulnerability, their heart, not their head, their heart opens, and all of a sudden they're feeling something nice. Well, I don't know about God, but I'm starting to feel peaceful. That's God. And it's not something that comes to us like some light ray from a specific part of the universe and actually eventually arrives, like it came some spiritual FedEx, some form, I'm praying and hopefully God hears. It does. And that it hears what I want and sends it to me, and that it arrives. You're thinking all linearly and time and distance. Really, prayer has variations. Highest level of prayer, lowest level of prayer. The lowest level of prayer, we could say, because today I'm wanting to talk about that light of God, but when we're down at the lowest level of prayer, first of all, people that don't even believe there's a God are still praying. Even if they're in the supermarket. God, these people frustrate me. They're always in line. They're always taking too long. They always forget their wallet and so on. That person's praying. But their prayers are not very positive, and they're not very happy, and they're not very helpful. But they're praying. We're always, always praying. Because thoughts are not neutral. They're not idle. The thoughts are always doing something. So what kind of space am I in will determine my prayers. My prayers then start to determine my reality. Because in my thoughts, subconsciously, usually not consciously, subconsciously, you and I every minute are having a consciousness. We're having consciousness. And that word's kind of tricky, because consciousness, you can be seemingly like nothing in your densest self, and you're still a conscious being. So you can't say not all consciousness is conscious. All right? But we're holding this consciousness of some kind, some level of consciousness, some vibrational frequency. And people talk about vibration and frequency and so forth. That's really cool, really fancy, neat. But vibrations, your vibrational essence, and all these cool New Age terms, to me they mean nothing. They're coming from my consciousness. If I put a light on and put a screen, a filter over the light, red or blue or whatever it is, the light looks blue. That's all those things are. When you talk about vibration, look, red light, purple light. What's important is the light behind the filter, not the filter. So I've created blue. And so people are walking around and they're looking, saying, I want to be purple. And they put a purple filter over the light. Look at me. And then they shine it on themselves, I'm a purple aura person. Aren't I something? That's great. But what about the consciousness behind it? And if you're not a purple and you want to be a purple, you change your consciousness. So people keep trying to change filters. People keep trying to blame people for the color of their vibration. And that doesn't do it. So how do I grow in consciousness? You can't just be consciousness. You choose to grow on the spiritual path. And it's amazing because you grow and you learn and you grow and you learn and you heal stuff and you work on stuff and you rebirth this and breath work that and Om Mani Padme and boom shakalaka and on and on and on and grow. And then one day, clouds part, the angels, and you go, wow, I had it all the time. We do all this stuff just to go, I had it all the time. I mean, flip around YouTube and look at these bizarre humans, the things they do. It's the weirdest thing. To me, it's the weirdest thing. It's like, it's funny. Imagine that you're an angel watching humans once in a while. It's really kind of a freak show. It's really, really, it's really odd. And whatever works doesn't work tomorrow. So you have to do a new weird thing. Yeah, and all the gadgetries and all the processes and all the techniques, and somebody's out there, trying to work themselves to become better. I'm going to run because I want to be thinner because people tell me. Tell you what? I'm not attractive. I am not attractive unless I'm thinner? You think your I am cares what your body looks like? The I am self? No. So I have to do this. Oh, then why else do you do it? Well, so I don't die. You're going to die anyway. So relax.
And you'll live longer.
Yeah, relax and you'll live longer. Stress kills. So, if there's a saying, guys, I don't know where I got this one, but I wrote it in one of my books. If you're meant to be shot, you'll never drown. It was channeled, I'm sure. But meaning, putting it in the terms of Jesus' statement, who of you by worrying can add a single day to your life? The key word there, worrying. Who of you by your own manipulation and control can really add a single day to your life? You're here, live fully now. Don't live trying to fix yourself to become different because now you're already not here now. And I'm not talking about don't eat well, but be well and then eat well, not eat well to be well. Nothing you can do of this earth is going to make you a better soul. The most it'll ever do is show you some things about yourself that you might want to work on eventually inside. But it's all about inside. So the light behind the filters is what's really most important. Your so-called, I want to raise my vibration, and somebody told me if I drink this, it'll raise my vibration. People will sell you anything. Just love. It's the light. I am the light of God. When I forget, that's what I need to work on, is remembering. And that's why some of the things we do on the outside, whether it's dietary or exercise or books or whatever we do, those things are helpful only to remind us who we are. It can't make you who you are. You're already it. It reminds us how to peel layers. So what's the value of doing inner child work? What's the value of that? It's in the past, so it doesn't do any good. It's an illusion. No, no, no. Because while I am where I am at any given moment, I believe so far that there's a past. That past seems to have an effect on me. Therefore, it's effective, helpful for me to work on that stuff. After I do all this work on myself, one day I will laugh and say, what was I thinking? That was bizarre. I just had the weirdest dream. I dreamt that I was in a body, and the other beings on the other side are going to, a what? A body. It's kind of weird. I can't explain it, but it's this thing you have and it gets older. What's older? I don't know. It's this thing where you start to look older and your body aches more. What's an ache? On the other side, these angels, these light beings, they don't know any of that. You can't say, and so you have to have your Wheaties and then you're a spiritual person. They're not going to get it. What's a Wheatie? You know? This language doesn't translate well to the other side. This is the pain language. This is a limitation consciousness here. This is a limitation language. Jesus calls our language, our conversations and so on, twice set apart from reality. Because you already think you're separate, then you try to describe it. It's the consciousness we have to get back to, not the doings, but the beings. Doesn't mean don't do, but just recognize. First of all, try to come from the highest place you can when you do those things. Do them differently. If you want to go to the gym, go to the gym. But don't go to fix yourself. Go because you love yourself. And it feels good to do those things. Eat foods that feel right and it just resonates with you. If you go and eat and drink things you hate so that you can live an extra day, I don't know if I'd want to live the extra day eating things I hate. It's like saying, man, this is a drag being here, it doesn't make sense. So get into who you are and then come from that place in all things you do. And you will still work on addictions. You'll still work on relationships. You'll still have a diet and so on that we deal with. But it starts to come from a more relaxed place. This thing we call God, you can't describe it as, well, let's see, God would be a healthy being. No. There's no thing as unhealthy in God, so there's no healthy. There's no body to be healthy. God would be rich. No, there's no money on the other side. There's no thing that we can really easily attach to God and understand God, but what we can do is a feeling. So what feeling is God? Any you want it to be. Peace, happiness, joy, and so on. That's great. The ultimate, if you were to have to say that there's a God, a father, mother, God, this so-called dualism that doesn't exist in God. But if you do, try to understand God and get what I'm saying. There is no gender and all that, but we're going to play the game anyway and use languaging so that our human self has something it can relate to. The father aspect of God is called bliss. And it just sits there as bliss. Well, I want God to be something. Stop. Father, bliss. The mother aspect of God is love. So when bliss sees its child, us, we are not bliss, not love. We are, but we also have our own name, light. We are the light of God. So God says, let there be light. That's the day we were created. And then the Father, which is bliss, says to love, guess what? Our children, the light of God, they've gone dim. Something happened. It went a little weird. They forgot who they are. And they decided to wrap something around their light and pretend that they're dark. The mother says, I got it covered. I'm love. So I'm going to go anywhere they are. I'm going to be in them, first of all. And I'm going to also be anywhere around them, in them, through them, up and down, left and right. I'm going to be everywhere they can be. I'm going to be the universal womb. And I'm going to be their reflection of themselves and how they're doing on any given day. So the love of God is the active principle of God. The love of God is what comes in here and becomes. The word mother is the same as the word matter. So the material universe is the mother. It's the universe of the mother reflecting to us how we're doing. Now, we think we're here forgetting that she's around us. No, 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 I'm on my own for sure. And I'm working to become a more spiritual person or not. Some people don't. Some people are like, I don't care, I don't believe in that stuff. It doesn't matter. Because we're always praying. So even people that don't believe, they drop something on their foot. Ow, that pain is a prayer. And it says, I'm in pain. You're going to be in pain. You're in a universe pretending that you're not here. You're in a universe that thinks it's the one that you want it to be, and it isn't. There's a saying in A Course in Miracles, I'm upset because I'm seeing something that's not there. What he's saying in that workbook lesson is the reason people get tense and upset and reactive and fearful every day is because on a deep level we know this place isn't really here. It's a hologram. And we've made ourselves believe that it's real and that it has power over us. And when we start to realize that, it's very upsetting. Because it's mind-boggling. If people, you hear about the word responsibility. Guys, there is only God. There's bliss, love, and light. The Trinity of God. And we're the light. It's not like we're also, now there's a fourth thing over here, and we need to beg God to somehow save us. We forgot who we are. How? Metaphorically, we've wrapped this thing, this veil around the light bulb, and we can't see. Now we're in darkness. We think the darkness is the universe, the blackness of the universe. And we think we're better off if we can have a home. It's like, there's some parts, I'm paraphrasing, but in A Course in Miracles, where Jesus says, when you realize who you are, you're going to realize you have built a home that has never kept you protected. Cities that hold stores that have things you never really bought. The whole thing's an illusion. You think you need clothes. For what? You don't even have a body. So we're living here in this delusion. And when we start to get it, and many people who have started to get it, panicked and became insane. What we call insane. Lots of insane people were people that actually started having an awakening and then panicked. Think about what I just said there. They panicked. Because that's how messed up the world is. You start to go, I get it, and then, oh my God, it can't be true. And you flip, you trigger yourself, and you explode inside. And you lose your mind. Your nervous system can't bear what just happened. Like the saying, do not look upon the face of God because it'll destroy you. That's kind of what I'm saying. When you start to have a complete awakening, like even a Kundalini rising, when you start to have a complete awakening, it sounds like, ooh, that's just so cool, and now I'll get that purple aura for sure, or whatever it is you're looking for. People are going to start seeing wings in my aura, whatever. It sounds all fancy. But if right now I snap my finger and everyone has instantaneous awareness, complete oneness on this planet, mind you, a sense of oneness, everything you do and think is going to change. There will be nobody home to report to. You won't have to call anybody on Mother's Day or Father's Day. You don't owe anybody anything. Nobody owes you anything. We're one with each other. There's no good guys or bad guys. So now when people come and talk to you about the terrible such and such in the world, you don't relate. And if you don't relate, if you go so far in not relating, they're going to lock you up. Because they're going to say, I think they've had a nervous breakdown. Why? Because they seem happy all the time. You don't have the same rules. And, it'll be some of them are going to be the people closest to you that are going to throw you under the bus and say, there's something wrong with you. You're not doing things the way you used to do them. I know, isn't it great? No. So people will snap. People will have, sometimes it goes too far for their nervous system. These awakenings are not just always these mild, gentle waves of peace and joy. Because we have an ego within us that doesn't want that at all. So it's going to tense up as the Kundalini starts rising. That doesn't work well. Tensing around an energetic rising. It would be like turning on a major source of power or energy or water and then crimping the hose. Over time, it's going to wear, it's going to break. And that's like our nervous systems. So you don't say, well, I'm a 110 wired here, and then you start putting 220 through me. It doesn't work. It starts burning the wires, and that happens in our nervous systems. So I am the light of God. That concept, I am. Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. But what he's saying isn't just himself exclusively. What he's saying is, I am is. The I am God presence within me is the way. It is the truth. It is the life. He wasn't saying, and let's start a religion that kills lots of people. What he's saying is, the I am within you. The I am within me is the way. And he even goes so far as to say, and no one will reach the Father but through me. And people went, okay, Jesus, not the guy who lived 2,000 years ago. What he's saying is the consciousness that I am is the only way home. So you have to awaken the I am presence to be in touch with the I am of God. It makes total sense. When you use the body as a metaphor, look how wide the torso is, how narrow the neck. The way is for the few. It means, here's the human self. When I want to remember God, I have to recognize the way is narrow. So as I grow in my chakras, I'm a root chakra kind of person, emotional chakra kind of person, etc. That's the me, the human self. If you want to connect with God, you can't approach it with all this humanness, the width of a human. You've got to get your act together. Narrow is the path. Few can make it. Partly what that means is, wide is the path of humanness. Everybody's human. They're all the same. They're all messed up. You want to reach God? Narrow down the stuff you do every day and get on the path. Hone in on the priorities, proper priorities. I have lots of stuff to worry about. Then you're not getting here. The throat center, which is the Christ center, spoken word of I am God, and all the way to the crown, mother and father, the other two centers in the head. I'm ready for God. I have too much going on. You can't have both. These worlds are mutually exclusive, meaning you can't have necessarily two things at the same time in the same place. So in every decision I make, when I'm choosing to be hurtful and hateful, I drop back to this self. When I choose to love, the way becomes narrow and I walk through the doorway, the gates of heaven. The kingdom of heaven is here. The Holy of Holies, where they kept the tabernacle, in the tabernacle where they kept the Ark of the Covenant. That's symbolically here. Only the high priest could ever enter the tabernacle and commune with God with the Ark of the Covenant to the people of Israel. The symbolism goes on and on, whether it's Africa, South America, symbolism everywhere. It's always telling us the same. Humans, many, getting nowhere. Those who devote to the spiritual path, the way is narrow and few make it. But the truth is, we'll all get there. It's just only few choose to get there at any given time. And, we think about teachers, teachers of God. Jesus is unique because he completely remembered. Completely remembered. But he's saying to us, all that I've done, you will do and more, which means if I remembered, you're going to remember. Not maybe, you're going to remember. You just get to choose when. Well, the longer you take, the longer will be your duration of pain. Oh, that makes sense because, man, I'm in a lot of pain all the time. I got struggles with this and that. No problem. As soon as your pain tolerance is reached, you're going to say goodbye to it. As soon, whether it's an addiction, whether it's a pained relationship. Remember, there's two kinds of relationships you can have. Gifting ones and karmic ones. The only way you get gifting relationships is by working on the karmic ones. You don't get them by pretending there's no karmic ones and just, go to, giftingrelationships.com, a new place for hookups, No. You only get gifting relationships by the work you've done with the karmic ones. So don't poo-poo the bad ones into the karmic ones and say, I don't like those. I'm going to go get me one of those. You can't mail order the gifting relationships. They emerge. If ever you've had a person that was dear to you, behaved nicely, loving, supportive, like they cared about you. If ever you had one of those, you earned it by working on the other. It never happened by accident. They had to have been earned by working on karmic relationships. So that's why we learn to say, my goal is that all my relationships have to become holy. Instead of, I'm going to start selecting only nice people. We realize the nicest of the nice are going to come organically from me doing this work here. It's not unlike the metaphor of health. You can eat all the best stuff, but if your body's toxic, it's not going to do as well. So you might want to do a cleanse along with the rest. So cleansing and certain things, certain foods, certain herbs, will have that effect, seeming effect of stripping away the stuff that would otherwise undermine all your attempts to be healthy. So it's an ecosystem. Whether we're talking physiology and anatomy and health, or we're talking spirituality, it's still an ecosystem. You can't just wish for one nice thing. You develop it, you earn it, and mainly through growing in consciousness. We're always praying. Every word you say, every complaint is a prayer. But here's the problem. Besides the linear intellectual version of a prayer, this is what makes us forget our light, because I am the light of God. And that will never be changed. I am the light of God. But I can choose to forget. But what we do is, we think we didn't choose to forget. We think the world made it happen. I wish I knew who I really was. And when you say, I wish I knew who I was, like the light of God. Guys, it takes many forms. If you say, I wish I had a raise at work, that's a little symptom of, I wish I knew who I was. You belittled it to a raise at work, made it somebody else had the power to give you the raise, which means you actually now have affirmed that you forgot who you were. By thinking anyone else is the blame, you're crystallizing or densifying that you are not the light of God. All the things, anytime we do anything hurtful to anyone, we darken the veil around ourselves. Anytime we act in a way that other people have power over us, we darken it. Anytime we make choices to harm ourselves or others, we darken it. Now, once we darken that veil that keeps the light from shining so that because it's so deep hidden inside, that we out here cannot see our own light, nor can we see it in each other very easily. So what we have to do is, how do we bring that light forward? Try as you may to be more spiritual, and you're stuck because it's contained. You can't just put a bicycle pump on it and inflate it, and your light's just going to burst beyond the density. It's like a cleanse for the body before nutrients can have their full effect. The same is true here. Before you try to inflate your light by pranayama breathing and all these other cool things you think are going to raise your vibration, you might want to find out what the container is that keeps holding you down. And that's my false belief systems. Not just little false belief systems like, do I look good in this color? Like simple stuff, surface level self-esteem. I'm talking about deep level of self-worth, my true value. So what is it that inhibits this? Hurts and hates, judgments, obviously judgments in a word. Unhealed wounds. But my daily behaviors. When I act out on another person, what it has done is affirmed that I don't know who I am. That's why Jesus says, forgive them, Father, they know not what they do. What he's really saying is, I'm choosing to forgive them because they have forgotten who they are. It's a really beautiful way to look at that. Imagine you're not just literally on the cross. Imagine when you have these pain in the butt people spitting on you, hurting you, hating you, ripping you off, undermining your life, throwing you under the bus. Verbally, mentally abusive, the narcissists of the world, the psychopaths of the world, and so on. All the hurtful stuff, the aggressive political nutcases, everybody doing this stuff to us. And we have no power and all we can do is hope to live another day, despite all the evils of the world. And what it's doing is, it's affirming, I already doubted who I was. They acted it out for me, and I said, and so it is. When I react to them, instead of, I got it, I forgive them, they know not what they do. Know not what they do means, I forgive them, they know not who they are. Guys, it's a fact. If they knew who they really were, they couldn't do what they're doing. It's a fact. They don't know who they are. They don't know, and if they did, they would be acting differently. So it's so evident. But when someone's hurting you, it's hard to remember that truth. But that's one way to keep the light in us growing instead of letting it go dim. Now remember this. If it goes dim, I have chosen incorrectly. Not it went dim and it was their fault. I just know that by now I would be Christed if it weren't for my ex. I just know. Absolutely sure. What you're saying is, there's a power outside of me that ruined my life. What you're really saying is, I already doubted myself, they mirrored it to me, I reacted, and now it's a fact. The alternate option is, I doubted, they mirrored it, when they mirrored it, I got it, said no thank you, I am as God created me, and I'm done, I got it. And that's Christ resurrecting. We all have our versions of crucifixions, obviously, but we have to find the space, the place, the consciousness of resurrection. So there's this ladder of prayer, and we're always praying, but the densest level, any words, any stuff, any guttural stuff, that's always praying. But let's call it conscious praying when you're trying to improve your life. The bottom rung is begging. Oh, dear Jesus. Oh, God, help me. Everybody's hurting me and out to get me, and they're terrible people, and I know that, I'm not that bad of a person. If maybe you could just help me, please, I could use some shoes. Whatever it is, beg, 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 beg. It's not bad because you're praying. But the begging level of prayer is a very fundamental or primal level. Better than nothing. But the opposite is called communion. And for a reason. And there's steps in between. But from primal begging to communion. So let's remember this. What does communion look like? Watch. If I center into God and I breathe in, on my website there's a free download. It's called Daily Communion Exercise. It's free under download. Just download it, print it. It's yours. I don't copyright these things, okay? They're yours. They're ours. So when we say, instead of, watch the difference. Dear God, please send me help on something. The other is, let me feel the presence of God, filling up with every breath. Let me imagine feeling that presence, and then let me imagine the kind of life that comes from being in that presence. And so it is. Now, what are the differences between those? One of them, I'm not connected. I'm begging for something from God, disconnected God. Send me something. And usually the thing I'm asking for is not actually what's going to help me. It's a thing. So a very dense person begging for a dense answer from a dense and separated God becomes all that God is. All the thing that I used to ask for things, that thing called God. I used to ask for things. All that I used to beg that being for is right here. Not in the little ego self, but in the I am presence. How do I get that I am presence here? A feeling. Just imagine in your prayers and meditations. See, I call it communion because humans, the ones that are on the path, some won't do any spiritual practices, but the ones that are on the path, they will pray and they will meditate. Praying is talking to God. Meditating, as we say, is God talking to us. And some people have all this sublime ideas, prayer only, meditate only. Some, you should do both. But at some point, they meld into each other. Because when I say, here comes a feeling of love, and I'm filling up with that presence of God, that becomes my prayer. My prayer isn't saying, God, you just stay where you are and send me something I want. Like some spoiled child saying, Mom, Dad, can you send me some money for summer fun? God, can you send me something? Well, that's not the way God is. God's a consciousness. That's what Jesus meant when he said, God already knows what you need before you ask. You know what humans did? Oh, cool. What he means by that is, I don't have to name all the things that I'm about to ask for because God already knows. So God, just bring all those things. You still kept it to things. What he meant was, God already knows what you want before you ask, meaning God knows you want consciousness. And when you said, okay, I got my list here, like God's Santa Claus or something, I got my list, you're actually trying to bring God down to your level. Not a wise thing to do. Not because God's going to be upset about it, but as soon as you do that, there is no God. Because if I make God in my image and I'm screwed up, God doesn't stand a chance. See? Thank God that God is beyond my human imaginings. God is this unchangeable bliss and peace and joy. This is what it means. Seek first the kingdom. Seek first the consciousness of God, and everything else is added. I pray this is making sense. Seek first the consciousness. Call in the presence, become one with, and then you'll have. Instead of God, I hope you see it. I need that raise because I wanted to get that new bicycle, and God, please, that's not actually consciousness. You've already determined you're a lower consciousness by begging and making God separate. So what is God? So if I need a new car because walking is a drag, I have to walk to Phoenix every day for work. It's just a bummer. Or I stand on the side of the road and go, well, God, please give me a ride. Instead of, I am so part of God, it would be impossible for me not to create a ride. It would be impossible for me not to be perfectly healthy. It would be impossible for me not to manifest a car. That's how this could work. What we're hearing, Buddha's meditating. It's getting hot. The trees would bow over his head to shade him. That's how this world can work, believe it or not. And we think that's, God, I heard about that happening once. Once in like 5 million years. Someone once had a tree bow over them to, how do you know? It just didn't mean that he was meditating so long, the tree grew. Humans don't want to believe in miracles. They just think they want to look for some natural causes to this and that. We forget the world is it's doing our bidding. We're always praying and the world is mirroring our prayers. If I have a miserable life, it's because I'm leaking out misery from my consciousness. I'm not blaming us for being miserable here and there. We all have an ounce or more per day. But how much of that is controlling my life? You'll never turn around the miserable consciousness that you're sending out into a blissful one until you own that it's even happening. You can't let sneak by, I'm miserable today, but it's because, careful. As soon as you say if only, or it's because, whatever else you're about to say is going to take the light out of you. It's going to dim your light. The light comes in by recognizing the misgivings, the misprojections, power elsewhere, and secondly, by not calling in that presence of who we really are. So we need to heal the past, the old, and we need to welcome in the new. The new isn't new at all, but it becomes new to our awareness. So every time we judge, every time we bargain, every time we belittle ourselves, every time you betray yourself, the light that you are has, for all intents and purposes, dimmed. Every time you made decisions, every time you picked up a bottle of something that you believed was toxic and drank it anyway. Anytime you slept with somebody that you went, that wasn't love. You're bargaining. You betray yourself. And every one of those is a choice. You can say, well, I wasn't thinking clearly. Then choose to think clearly. Choose to heal and own that you made a mistake. Say, I got it. I'll choose not to do that again, and that's going to help. But also choose the opposite. Choose otherwise. It's all, this concept, people use the word responsibility, forgetting that word also is synonymous with choosing. I'm responsible for the choices I make, but not just the conscious ones. How do I become connected to and responsible for my unconscious choices. See, the ego makes them unconscious so that we don't take responsibility for them, because if we take responsibility for them, we would change them. So we call some people, oh, they're such a victim, because they whine too much for your liking. Everybody that's in a body thinks they're a victim, or they wouldn't be in a body. As soon as you realized, I'm God, why would you go and I think I'm going to get in a body? It makes no sense at all. You can try to glorify it all you want and make it all kind of cool and, oh, because of human experience. People do that. They go, God, we think God somehow created the universe and then thought, I'm going to create human bodies and I'm going to go into a body so I can experience what a body is. It sounds really fancy, but it's insane. Something that is all decided to become a nothing. It makes no sense. The only way we could do that is we had a moment of insanity. To choose that we were something that less than God created us to be. It was a choice. That was the first choice, and that's the consistent choice. So God knows what we want, and it's one thing, it's to remember. It's just to remember who we are. We are the light of God. Once we do something, guys, it's this habit thing. Once we do something, we start to believe it. You know, once I sell my body off, once I bargain my body away, once I betray myself, my integrity, once you cheat just a little bit on whatever, a test or taxes or whatever it is, once we do a little something, we start to let that become our pattern. And then we start running on that, we'll steer a little further off. It's never a problem, just, well, I'm not a bad person, but just a little. I'm just going to do a little, you know, I'm just kind of haven't been with somebody for a while, so a little over here, you know, because you know they don't look too crazy. So this will work out. Well, that little bit of fudging on this or that little bit, as soon as you do it, it starts to become. Once you go 100 years down the line, that little adjust, a 16th, 32nd of an inch to the right, and it becomes miles off just in a matter of time, right? So those little betrayals of ourselves, if you're not honest about those, it's going to be really hard to be honest about the major self-betrayals. And here's the ultimate great news about all this. No matter how much I steered off, small, large steering off, how much self-betrayal, how much self-abuse, and no matter how long I've let it go on, no matter how many lifetimes, you could have been the craziest of megalomaniacs in all the dictators in history. And still, I'll choose again. I'm going to choose differently. Yeah, but you know what you did. Yes, I do. And that's not me. That's who I thought I was. Thought, past tense. But if I'm not that anymore, it has no value. Now it's just called a ghost. It's a memory. And humans with egos will still obsess on where they went off, what they did wrong. And it's hard not to, because we often have lots of people to remind us. You know, just like a moment after Jesus' crucifixion, and Magdalene came. Sometimes these things are just so beautiful and powerful. You know, Magdalene comes into the room and says he's risen. And the apostles, they're like his friends, and they saw a lot of cool stuff. I mean, you think they would have totally believed everything. They go, no, that can't happen. She's going, what do you mean? He's risen. I saw him. He's talked to me. And they kind of thought, women. They did. They did. And her response was, what do you mean? What do you mean? It's impossible. What do you mean? It's my fantasy. What do you mean? It's just I dreamt up some woman. What do you mean? Gender discriminations. You crazy people. She didn't say that. I'm paraphrasing. But she's saying, aren't I the one that he spoke to so deeply about things? Do you remember I was there at the cross? You guys weren't there. So of course it's possible for him to appear to me. And this beautiful experience. And then Peter starts to go, yeah, you know what? I have a feeling. Doubting Thomas, some of the others are going, Peter, seriously? You were always so grounded. He's going, no, I have a feeling she's telling the truth. Now, they couldn't just let him go, I get it, or her, I get it. They had to try to shoot him down because he symbolizes our quest for the truth. And the ego wants to shoot it down. And he says, no, I think it's true. Peter, come on. And then they started firing away on him. Come on, Peter, you're the one who denied him. Who are you to act like you believe this possibility of a resurrection? And he's, yes, I did deny him. I did. I blew it because I was a coward, because I forgot, because I let the ego win out for the moment. And we all betrayed him. You guys weren't there either. But we can choose differently. Her heart walks in and says the truth. The head rears up and attacks her and the truth. And then one guy more and one guy more. And they start tipping the scales to where they start to go, yes. Yeah, I think it's, yes. I think so. It's possible. Yes. And it becomes more and more. And then, before they know it, Jesus materializes in the room. Why didn't he just materialize them and slap them upside the head when they first said no? Guys, he wanted them to change their beliefs. He wanted them to believe it's possible, and then he materializes. Someone sent in a question this week, is it true? Will Jesus someday come back? And when? He's not going to come back and try to convince people that he ever was. This is the drag in a way. It's like the bad news. He's only coming back when we get it enough. When people get it, then it'd be like almost redundant. But that's what he's going to do. He's coming when the way is made clear by enough believers. He's not going to come and try to convert people again. He's going, no, I already gave you the message. I was there and gave you the message. Now I'm speaking into your hearts. He's saying, because the mother and I, we're working together on this. She and I are in every one of you. She's birthing the light in you, and I am the light in you. So this is a no-fail plan. Got it? Beautiful. And it's already done. Oh, really? Okay, when are you going to manifest? No. Here, try to feel the presence. Try to feel the presence. Oh, you mean like the rituals that fundamental religions do? Accept Jesus as your personal Savior. Not say it, feel it. Accept not Jesus as, accept Christ. Consciousness, which is the name of God in you. Accept the presence of God. And when you try to, you're going to have all the other heads in your being, your ego, firing away, bullying the Magdalene heart that says, yeah, I think so. This might be true. It's going to start with a maybe, and then it starts to go, it is true. Till you, at some point, it becomes you. It's like you can't convince me any differently now. People say, Michael, do you have visions? Michael, do you have... I don't stand around and brag things like that. Because as a spiritual teacher, that's one thing that works. If you want to be really successful, brag. Brag. Tell people how much you can see auras. Tell people how many lifetimes you can remember. Just tell them all. I was this wealthy landowner. You all worked for me, and now you owe me money. You didn't, this is what they do. A teacher of God is different from a teacher of man. Human teachers are going to tell you about themselves. If you buy this book, and if you take this, and if you do, they're going to talk to you about them. That's a human teacher. Is that bad? No. If that's all you want to be as humans, listen to them. And buy their stuff. They're going to talk about themselves. They're #1 best-selling this and that's. And they're on certain TV shows, and everybody, wow. And they're all wowed by them. Teachers of God are different. They don't want to take you to them. They take you to God. They want to talk about where you're going, and it isn't to them. It isn't about selling things. It's about a state of consciousness. And so when people ask me, and Michael, and wow, I understand you're tempting me even to go there sometimes, because the student is going to want things in the traditional form. Wow us with stuff so that we can get hooked in. And I almost go overboard to steer clear of that. I don't talk about, but I know past lives of mine, but I don't talk about them. I can say we. Yes, we have done this work before. I do things like that. But I steer clear. And everything that Jesus is saying, I am, you are, and more. He doesn't tell you worship him. But it sounds like it. He said he's the way. Who's the he that's talking when he says, I am the way? He's talking about, like I said earlier, the I am God presence. So he's not really trying to make a religion around the man. He's trying to make a connection to the spirit known as Christ. And Christ is what we all ultimately are. Christ is the light of the world. I am the living Christ. And you can say, well, if I'm the living Christ, why? Because I attended this class or this talk? Or no, because everyone is. Okay, well, now you just took all the glamour out of it. Because I know some really rude people. And if you're telling me they're Christ, I don't feel any better now that I know I am, because it just means nothing to me. That's scary and that's tempting to throw you off. What it means is, forgive them, they know not, remember not who they are. And I'm choosing to remember. I am the living Christ. That's the truth of God. That can't change. I am the living Christ. But I'm not talking about Michael. Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending. In case you don't know this, I am the living Christ. I'm the reincarnation of Jesus. Oh, did you hear about the guy that's in Sedona? Oh, Sedona. There's got to be a living Christ there, for sure. There's got to be several. And they'll charge you a lot to be in their holy presence. Why I even joke and laugh with you all once in a while is because it breaks up the seriousness of the depth that we go into. And some people get that and some people don't. They're like, this is so deep. And then I crack a joke, they're like, oh, I don't like him anymore. But what you're really saying is, you don't like that I made you break the trance, that you put it on me. I'm sharing these moments. I'm always just sharing these moments. I'm in the experience with. I'm never preaching to. I have no interest to preach to. Preaching to is like, you don't get it. You're just little something or others and I'm amazing. Who's the I am that can be amazing? It can't be in just me. How could I really get it and make such statements? So we're in this together. This is all a channeled experience that we're all in together. And there's times when, all I need to do for a moment, drop into this topic or this feeling, and it all starts to unfold and download through me. And it can download as a teaching, and it can download as strong, and it can download as awe. Just this, this feeling. Like I did a minute ago, just I can feel it and I can remember it. The room and what it's like in that room. And Jesus materializing, and Magdalene trying to talk these people into understanding that she had some experience. And no, you didn't. And yet it's not just her and them. I feel it in all of us. As soon as I talk about it, I start feeling the feelings of everyone that's ever said, guess what? And they've been the rug pulled out from them. Some of them locked up, locked away in mental institutions because they said something's happening, and people panicked and didn't understand them. So that's what happens for me is I start describing bliss of God, and I feel the bliss of God as I'm describing the bliss of God. Then I talk about pain and suffering, and I sometimes drop in, not lost in it, but I can feel it. And I can feel it in the room and the people online, and it's a lot to dance with in a way. It's really a strange experience because you start channeling, and the channeling is a perfect channeling. So whatever topic, it starts to become all of that topic. Does that make sense? Sadness, loneliness, hurt, wounding, childhood griefs, and it starts to, it's not just like it's my own, it's waves of it. And that's all true, but it's also then equally true that, and as we, any of us, go into the consciousness of God, you start channeling that. And you start then becoming that. If all you do is channel it, but don't ground it by becoming, it's going to get you. It's going to bite you. Because it's a high frequency that you're contradicting on an earth plane. As you tap into God, if you hear anything you like today, start becoming it. Anything you didn't like, let it go. Become. Whether you heard it, whether you experienced it, whether we meditated it or prayed it, anything you experienced, practice becoming it. Just imagine if I'm love. Michael was talking about Magdalene's courage. She walks in, guys, and they're like, go. She didn't start doubting herself. Oh, maybe you're right. I might have hallucinated that. Yeah, you're. No. She's like, you know what? This is the truth. If you don't want to get it, I'll leave. Goodbye. She's teaching us, and Jesus and Peter and John, and they teach us. But listen to what they're teaching and become that thing. Don't make it an intellectual message. Become that thing. Let none of it be in vain. So today I started with that same message. You can unlock the secrets of the universe with any message you hear. Or you can get nowhere, and it's a choice. Stay tensed. If we're talking musculature, you're all bound up, and your head can get bound up with beliefs, limitations, wounds, just like muscles. But today, wait, let me just try that on, and the muscles start unwinding, and you're, well, yeah, I guess that's possible. A friend of mine had a miracle. I've never had those, but I heard about one once. And as soon as you say that, you go, that's kind of nice. You let the aroma of that incense waft over to you. Wow, a friend of mine had a miracle, and I can smell and feel that, wow, that beautiful fragrance. Now it's in you. And watch, because in a short amount of time, you're going to have one too. Because miracle consciousness is wonderfully contagious. Hear it, feel it, soak it in, and now you're going to start seeing them more often. And you're going to go, this is a weird coincidence. That's a separate person still. You're not high on the ladder yet, but that's a weird coincidence. I was just talking to somebody about miracles, and I got one. And you're going to think it's a coincidence. But at some point, you rise up the ladder, and you're in the communion. You go, it's impossible to not have them. Because I'm in the consciousness. Wow. This is amazing. People that can't resonate with the consciousness, they're leaving my life. And you're going to be a human and go, dear Lord, up in the sky, please bring them back. And God's like, wasn't it yesterday you told me to help get rid of them? And that's humans. So I'm going to say, I don't know what's in my best interest. I don't know who's supposed to be in my life. I'm just going to call in the presence of bliss, peace, joy, and see what happens. Be the change you want to be in the world. Please take a few centering breaths. We'll begin by being completely honest. Looking at our lives, let's think of anything that's challenging us at this time. Be it physical, emotional, relationship, financial, any challenge whatsoever, become aware. Just say it or describe it in a sentence or so. I recognize my challenge seems to be this. And historically speaking, if I were praying at some distant past or recent past time, what would I have prayed for to fix that thing? Being honest. Or what do average people do to ask for that to be fixed? Things like, God, please bring them back. Please, God, fix my situation with that person. Please, God, help me get the raise. Help me find the job. It's honest. It's from the gut. From a primal part of ourselves. But usually it still involves fear, and usually it involves asking a being outside to give us something in our lives, materially or personally. And then hear these words. I do not know what to pray for, what to ask for, nor do I know what I really need. Just try that humility. And in that humility, imagine your arms are opening to the sky. I don't know. And as your arms open, something very organic happens. The I don't know arms coming out means my issues and thoughts are being brought out of my heart center and thrust out to the sky. And organically, the Holy Spirit, the Divine Mother, can start to just pour gently her presence down into our hearts and souls. Imagine you're standing and you're like a chalice and you're being filled up through your head into your heart with every inhalation. But give it a specific theme, a specific wording like peace and happiness. Any word or two that you want as a feeling. I would love to feel peace and happiness, love and self-worth, joy and abundance. Any two words. Especially words that would be the opposite of what your challenge was. If your issue was finances, love and abundance would be great to call in. If your issue was self-worth and wounds of the past, maybe I'll call in love and self-worth. If I've been really serious on the path, maybe peace and happiness. Anxious might call in peace, trust. Not just seeing it, not just calling it in, feel it. Spend the next half minute imagining that you feel the feeling of your words. What if you actually do feel peace? What would it be like? Happiness, what would it be like? Abundance, what would it be like? If you don't feel some of your muscles kind of relaxing and a little bit of a smile, inside or out, a little more happiness, if you don't feel like the cells in your being are starting to dance a little bit, then you're still in your head. You don't wake a child on Christmas morning and say, guess what? Merry Christmas. And they go, oh, yeah, what a bummer. What would they do? That's how you should be feeling if Christmas Christ Mass came to you. If the presence of Christ, the presence of the Divine Mother, the presence of God is filling you up, let it take, let it set in, let it change the cells of your being. And lastly, imagine now that you have this consciousness, how might it bring to you organically the thing you were originally asking for? The thing, the challenge, and then what you thought was the solution. How does the feeling bring you a solution? Open your mind to it. Because believe it or not, consciousness brings you everything. It's the only thing that brings you anything. Shift consciousness and the external things begin to change. And then gradually, slowly, breathing and stretching, giving thanks. Believe, feel and believe that you have what you are looking for. This is how and why Jesus then taught, give thanks before you even see the outcome of what you're looking for. You give thanks. Why? Because he knew he got what he was asking for. Whether it was praying for someone's healing, it's all I need to do is be in the consciousness of seeing them healed, and they're healed. And gradually stretch out, giving thanks. So it is. Did you let some of this in today? That's good.